When helping others destroys you. Have you ever helped everyone around you so much that one day you realize you were the only person nobody was helping? You answer every call, you listen to every problem, you say yes when you're tired, you become everyone's emergency contact, unpaid therapist, motivational speaker, problem solver, and occasionally free taxi service. But slowly, something strange happens. The more you help everyone else, the more you start losing yourself. And the worst part, people often praise you for it. They call you kind. They call you selfless. They say, I don't know what I'd do without you. And somewhere inside, you smile, because being needed feels good. But being needed and being healthy are not the same thing. Sometimes helping others doesn't make you a hero. Sometimes it slowly destroys you. Let's talk about how. Helping people is a beautiful thing. We need kind people. We need people who care. We need the friend who says, hey, are you okay? We need the person who helps without expecting a reward. The world already has enough people who disappear when things get difficult. So no, this isn't a message telling you to stop caring about others. The problem isn't helping. The problem is believing that helping everyone is your responsibility, because there's a big difference between, I want to help you, and if I don't save you, everything will fall apart. One comes from kindness, the other can come from fear. Maybe you're afraid people will leave if you stop helping. Maybe you're afraid of disappointing them. Maybe you've spent so long being the strong one that you don't know who you are without that role. Or maybe, deep down, being needed gives you a sense of worth, because when someone says, I need you, your brain goes, finally, I am useful. And suddenly, you forget that you're also allowed to be tired. Think about the person who always says yes, someone asks them for help. Yes, someone needs to borrow money. Yes, someone calls at midnight with the same relationship problem they've had for 3 years. Yes, someone asks them to do extra work. Yes, someone asks, can you help me move my entire house this weekend? Their back is already broken emotionally, physically, spiritually, but somehow, yeah, sure. At this point, they're not a human being. They're a customer service department with anxiety. And here's the dangerous part. People get used to your yes, not necessarily because they're evil, but because humans adapt. If you always carry the bags, people stop noticing they're heavy. If you always solve the problems, people stop learning how to solve them. If you always sacrifice your time, people start assuming your time belongs to them. And when you finally say no, suddenly you become the villain. That can be incredibly confusing, because you think, I've helped you 100 times. I said no once. And they act like you personally cancelled their Netflix subscription. But this teaches you something important. Sometimes people don't love your kindness. They love your access, your availability, your usefulness. And when you create a boundary, they don't miss the person. They miss the convenience. That hurts, but it can also wake you up. One of the biggest reasons helping others can destroy you is emotional exhaustion. You might not even notice it happening at first. You just become tired, but not normal tired. You sleep 8 hours and still feel exhausted. You wake up and immediately feel like someone has already assigned you 3 emotional emergencies. You see your phone ring and your first thought is, what problem is coming now? You care about people, but you secretly don't want anyone to contact you. Then you feel guilty for feeling that way, so you answer anyway. And the cycle continues. You listen to everyone's problems, you carry their sadness, you worry about their decisions, you replay their situations in your head, you try to find solutions for problems that aren't even yours. Meanwhile, your own life is sitting in the corner like, hello, remember me? But you're too busy. Everyone else needs you. The problem is that empathy without limits becomes emotional overload. Imagine carrying one bag, easy, and someone gives you another, still manageable, then another, then another. Eventually, you're carrying 10 bags and people keep saying, can you hold this too? And because you're kind, you say yes. But kindness doesn't make your arm stronger. At some point, you will drop something. Maybe your health, maybe your relationships, maybe your peace, maybe yourself. And sometimes, helping others becomes a way to avoid helping yourself. That sounds strange, but think about it. It's easier to focus on someone else's problems than to sit with your own. If your friend is going through a breakup, you can spend hours giving advice. You can analyze their relationship. You can make theories, you can send motivational messages, you can basically become a relationship detective, but then you go home and realize your own life is a mess, your own emotions are unresolved, your own problems have been waiting quietly for attention, but you don't know what to do with them. So instead, you help another person, because fixing someone else can feel easier than facing yourself. You become the expert in everyone's life except your own. You know exactly what your friend should do, you know what your cousin should do, you know what your co-worker should do, but when someone asks, what do you want? Suddenly, your brain starts loading. You may have spent so much time taking care of everyone else that you stopped asking yourself the simplest question, how am I? And if that question makes you uncomfortable, you might already be giving too much. There's another trap. The belief that love must be earned through usefulness. Maybe nobody ever said it directly. Maybe it was something you learned. You learned that when you were helpful, people appreciated you. When you were quiet and easy, people liked you. When you took care of others, you received attention. So eventually, your brain connected love with service. If I help people, they will value me. If I'm useful, they won't leave. If I'm always there, I'll matter. But you shouldn't have to perform for basic love. Real relationships should not work like a subscription service. You don't have to keep renewing your usefulness every month. Your value does not disappear when you rest. You don't become less important because you say no. You don't become a bad person because you have limits. And you certainly don't have to save everyone to deserve a place in their life. Sometimes the people who help everyone have a secret fear. They fear being a burden, so they never ask for help. They'll support 10 people, but when they're struggling, they'll say, "I'm fine." Their entire life is falling apart. The emotional building is on fire. The roof is gone. The furniture is floating. And they're standing there saying, "No, I'm good." Why? Because they're comfortable giving. Receiving feels strange. Maybe they think, other people have bigger problems. I don't want to bother anyone. I should handle this myself. But that creates a lonely life. Everyone knows you as the person who supports them. Nobody really knows how much you need support. Another reason helping others can destroy you is resentment. This is where things get dangerous, because resentment often begins quietly. You say yes when you want to say no. You help when you're already exhausted. You cancel your own plans. You sacrifice your needs, and you tell yourself, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay." But eventually, your mind starts keeping score. You remember every time you helped, every sacrifice, every late night call, every favor, every time you showed up. And then one day when you need something, nobody comes. And suddenly, all those "it's okay" moments become, wait a minute. You feel angry, but you also feel guilty for being angry because you chose to help. Nobody physically forced you, but here's the truth. Just because you volunteered doesn't mean you didn't overextend yourself. And just because someone didn't ask you to sacrifice everything doesn't mean you should have. Resentment often grows when your actions and your true feelings are you say yes, but inside you smile. But inside you're exhausted. You help, but inside you're hoping someone will finally notice how much you give. And that's a recipe for burnout, because unspoken expectations are still expectations. If you give everything hoping people will someday give you the same thing without telling them what you need, you may end up deeply disappointed. The hardest part about setting boundaries is that it can feel selfish at first, especially if you're used to being the helpful one. Someone asks you for something. You want to say no. Your heart starts beating faster. You start writing a long explanation in your head. You need a reason. A good reason. A convincing reason. Maybe a doctor's note. Maybe 3 witnesses. Maybe a legal document. But sometimes, "I can't" is enough. "I'm not available. I don't have the energy for that today. I'm sorry, but I can't help with this." That's enough. You don't have to turn your boundary into a PowerPoint presentation. You don't have to explain every detail, because some people will keep searching for a reason they can argue with. You say, "I'm tired." They say, "It won't take long." You say, "I'm busy." They say, "You can do it tomorrow." You say, "I'm overwhelmed." They say, "But I really need you." And suddenly, you're back to saying yes. That's why sometimes a boundary has to be simple. No. Not rude. Not cruel. Just clear.